This will be for the Kuta software worksheet, adding and subtracting polynomials. So you want to remember, in order to combine like terms, the variables or letters and the exponents must match. Okay, and what I mean by combine is add or subtract. So if we wanted to add 2a to the third b squared plus 3a to the third b squared, we can do that because we have a and b on both terms, and a is to the third power on both terms, b is to the second power. So you just take the coefficient, the number in front of the variables, and add 2 plus 3, you have 5. And then you rewrite the variable terms with their exponents, a to the third and b squared. So the letters or variables have to match, and the exponents have to match as well. So let's say we had 3a squared b to the third minus 2a to the third b squared. There is nothing you can do to combine these terms, okay, because a is to the second power and a is to the third power, b is to the third and b is to the second. These do not match, therefore we cannot combine them. Okay, if there is no coefficient in front of the variable, it is automatically a 1, okay, but you want to keep the plus minus sign. So if you have an x with no number in front of it, it is automatically 1x. That's the same thing. If you have a negative y, you can place a 1 in front of it, and it is also considered negative 1y. That's the same thing. Okay, and finally, if you distribute a positive sign, nothing changes. But if you distribute a negative sign, all plus or minus signs change. So if you had 1 plus parentheses a minus b plus c, you're distributing a positive sign and nothing changes, okay? Just distributing this positive sign really doesn't do anything. You still have 1 plus a and then plus negative b plus positive c. So the a is still positive, the b is still negative, and the c is still positive. None of the plus minus signs change. Now, if you have 1 minus parentheses, a minus b plus c, all of the plus minus signs will change because you have to distribute this negative to each term. So you start with the 1, and then you would have minus a, minus negative b, the two negatives make it positive b, and then minus c. Okay, so notice each sign changed. We had positive a and then negative a. We had negative b and then positive b. Positive c, negative c. This negative sign changed the sign of everything in the parentheses. All right, so we're going to simplify each expression, and there's going to be 3 main steps. The first step, we're going to distribute the negatives. Then we're going to align the like terms vertically, and then we're going to combine like terms, okay? You don't necessarily have to align them vertically, but I think it helps. All right, problem 1. I am going to leave the first set of parentheses alone, and here we are distributing a positive sign to both terms, but the positive sign changes nothing inside the set of parentheses. So really, we could just leave this as is, and I am going to rewrite these terms under the like terms on the first set of parentheses. So here we have p squared and p squared, they match. So I'm going to take the positive 2p squared and put it under the 5p squared. Okay, and then we have negative 3p to the third. We don't have p to the third here, so I'll just write it underneath negative 3p to the third. Notice I crossed off as I wrote it underneath. This way you don't miss any terms. Okay, and now we can just add. All right, 5 plus 2 is 7, and we keep the p squared. And these two terms are not like terms. This is p to the third, and this one does not have a p. So we can't combine them. So we have a negative 3, and we have a negative 3p to the third. Again, you can cross them off as you write them, just to make sure. Now, I will accept this as an answer. However, just to be complete, you're really supposed to put the largest exponents first and then count down. So the third power is the largest exponent. So I'm going to take the negative 3p to the third and write that first. And then the next largest exponent is second power. So positive 7p squared. And then finally negative 3. Okay. Really, these are the same answers, this one here and this one here. But if you want to check your answers, their answers are in this form. So if you look at their answer for number 1, I got the same answer that they did. Okay, the answers are on pages 3 and 4. All right, let's look at number 11. Just as before, I'm going to leave the first set of parentheses alone. And over here, we are distributing a negative sign, okay? This negative sign gets distributed to each term, okay? So make sure you do that. And when you distribute a negative sign, it's the same as multiplying by negative 1. You change the sign on all 3 of these terms. So this is positive 10a, but distributing the negative, it's now negative 10a. This negative sign becomes positive, and this negative sign becomes positive. Okay, so I noticed I changed all 3 plus minus signs when I distributed this negative. And now you can make this plus if you want, but it doesn't matter. Okay, we're just going to take these 3 terms, 1, 2, 3, including the plus minus sign, and line them up vertically with the like terms. Okay, right here I have a to the 5th, so I'm going to take this positive 2a to the 5th and write it underneath. All right, 2a to the 5th. Right here I have a with no exponent. So right here I have a with no exponent. I'm going to write it underneath negative 10a, right underneath the negative 6a. Okay, here's a to the 3rd, here's a to the 4th. It doesn't match, but I'm just going to write it underneath. Positive 14, a to the 4th. All right, and now everything is lined up. And we're just going to add. A to the 5th matches, so we keep a to the 5th. And 12 plus 2 is 14. The a's match, so we keep the a. We have negative 6 plus negative 10, that's negative 16. These two do not match, so we leave it as is. Negative 10a to the 3rd. And positive 14a to the 4th. All right, so really that's it. But if you want to write it the way they did, largest exponents first is best. So I'm going to do 14a to the 5th. Next up is a to the 4th, 14a to the 4th. Next up is a to the 3rd, so that's negative 10a to the 3rd. All right, there is no a squared, but we have a negative 16a for the last term. So that's it right there, final answer. Once again, the first answer and the second answer here are really the same. I just rewrote it to put the larger exponents first. And once again, checking my answer against theirs, we can see that I got the same answer as they did. Okay, please pause and try number 12. Remember to distribute the negative sign first. Okay, number 12, I'm going to leave the first set of parentheses alone and distribute this negative sign. Make sure you distribute it to each of the 3 terms, okay? 1, 2, 3. By doing that, I'm multiplying by negative 1. So 3n squared becomes negative 3n squared. Positive 11n to the 4th becomes negative 11n to the fourth, and this negative 7 becomes positive. Okay, see, I changed the plus minus sign on each of the three terms when I distributed the negative. And you can make this plus now. All right, let's line them up vertically. Here I have 8n. I don't have any n's here. Here I have n to the fourth and n to the fourth. So I'm going to take my negative 11n to the fourth, cross it off, and write it underneath. Negative 11n to the fourth. Here I have n squared. I'm going to take negative 3n squared and write it underneath. And finally, positive 7. There's no regular numbers here, so I'll just write it right here, positive 7. All right, it doesn't line up with anything. And now we can just add. Okay. So these don't match, so I'm just going to write them 8n and positive 7. Okay, n to the fourth matches. So we keep n to the fourth. Negative 3 minus 11 is negative 14. The n squareds match, so we're going to keep n squared. 10 minus 3 is positive 7. Okay, and that's really the answer, but we will write the largest first. N to the fourth is largest, so that's negative 14 n to the fourth. Next up is positive 7n squared. Then positive 8n, and finally positive 7. And that's the final answer. Largest exponents first. All right, let's look at number 27. Looks like a tough problem, but it might not be that bad. I'll leave the first set of parentheses alone. Right here we have a negative, so I am going to distribute that negative to each term. Okay, it's the same as multiplying by negative 1, so I'm going to change all these plus minus signs, each one. This negative is positive, this negative is positive, and this negative is positive. Now I can make this plus. All right, and same thing here, distributing this negative. Positive 10x becomes negative 10x. Positive 9x squared becomes negative 9x squared. Okay, and I'll make this positive. So I distributed that negative as well. All right, now let's line them up. Here I have x squared, here I have x squared. Positive 6x squared, I'll write it underneath. Okay, here we have x to the third y squared. Here we have x to the third y squared. So I'm going to take this. 7x to the third y squared, and put it right underneath. All right, here I have positive 4x. Here I have negative 10x. So I'm going to take that negative 10x and write it underneath. Here I have negative 9x squared. And over here we have our x squared. So that's going to be negative 9x squared. All right, so we're adding all these together. The x squareds match, so we keep the x squared. 4 plus 6 is 10, minus 9 is just 1. Here we have x to the third y squared, they match. 7 plus 7 is positive 14. Okay, here the x's match. 4 minus 10 is negative 6. And that's it. We crossed off everything else. All right, so this mess here is the answer, but we really want to write it properly. So I'm going to put the largest exponents first. Here I have x to the third y squared. So 14 x to the third y squared is going to be first. And here's x squared. So I'm going to keep the 1x squared next. But 1x squared is just the same as x squared. So you don't need the 1. That's positive x squared. And finally, negative 6x. All right. So that's it right there. All right, please try number 30. Don't forget to distribute this negative. Okay, I'll leave this one alone. This is a plus sign, so distributing a plus sign changes nothing. Okay, so I am going to leave these alone. However, here we have a negative sign, so distributing the negative sign changes the sign on each one. So here's a positive. I'm going to make this negative. And here's a positive. I am also going to make that one negative. Okay, and you can make this outside negative a plus sign. All right, let's line them up. Y to the third, here I have positive 6y to the third. All right, here's x to the fourth, y to the fourth, x to the fourth, y to the fourth. So plus 4 right underneath. X to the fourth, y to the fourth. All right, let's see. Here's x to the fourth, y to the third, and x to the fourth, y to the third. I'm going to write it right underneath. Remember that if there's a negative sign with no coefficient, you can make it -1. So this is just the same as -1, x to the fourth, y to the third. Cross that one off. And then finally, -6, x to the fourth, y to the fourth, right under here. All right, and cross that one off. So that's it. We're in business. We crossed everything off. Add them up. Okay, y to the third is 1y to the third. So we keep y to the third. 1 plus 6 is 7. Here we have x to the fourth, y to the fourth. -7 plus 4 is -3. Minus 6 is -9. All right, here we have x to the fourth, y to the third. -10 minus 1 is -9. All right, so we did this column, and that column, and everything else is crossed off. We're in business. Okay, biggest exponents first. So x to the fourth, y to the fourth beats out these two. Okay, -9, x to the fourth, y to the fourth. And then next up, x to the fourth beats y to the third, so -9, x to the fourth, y to the third, cross it, and then finally, positive 7y to the third. And that is your final answer.